Previously on the Game On podcast.
Yeah, that was where it all started for me. Played all my juniors there, right through from under 9s through to under 17s.
And did you represent a little bit as your junior for that area?
I played some interleague as a junior. I didn't play a lot of rep games because my mum wouldn't let me because I was a bit small. So, yeah, so I was a very late developer. So I was always the smallest in the team. Always held the footy in the team photos down the front. So,
I reckon your colt mightn't have changed from that position yet either, Halves. And I can remember sitting with a game with you watching, and I reckon there was a nervous mum watching that day, actually. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have my parents were very supportive and hardly missed any of my games. Even, they'd be over every 3 or 4 weeks driving over from Melbourne to watch me play at Norwood.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
And welcome to Game On. My name's Pete. Once again, Malcolm in the studio, and Anthony Harvey. They're fantastic in part one. They're just talking about some of his junior rep days back at home in Victoria.
Yeah, I don't think Harv's probably changed in his position in his career, the small guy with the middle holding the ball or the on the left-hand side of the front row, the great man. So, yes, appreciate Harv's for his time.
Absolutely. Once again, we thank Anthony in part two coming up a little bit later on today. But let's get into Around the Grounds, mate.
Around the Grounds.
All right, and to kick us off, as per usual, the SANFLW, the SANFL, some cricket, some interesting tactics going on there, mate. I don't know if you've seen it just yet, but we'll talk about that as we go along. But let's kick off with the AFL, and let's play a little bit of a grab from Kenny first up.
I'm going to turn up to work and work really hard with all my people, all my staff, and all our players to make sure we can turn this around really quickly. Where we are right now, we've got an opportunity to go back to work straight away and change some of the narrative that we've earned.
Chris just said, post-game, he said the worst bit about winning today was that you were booed. What's that like in the stadium? It shows you that sort of negative image.
It's not fun. It's not what I enjoy. It's just what the reality is of my job. If you can't cope with it, you probably shouldn't be in my job. I can cope with it. I don't enjoy it, but it's not my favourite time. But my favourite time is watching my team play well.
Is it unfair?
No, well, I don't make the rules on unfair and fair. I work on what I can control, and that's my job inside the footy club.
Everyone's excited about the midfield possibilities that you had. In your mind, why isn't it achieving the results that everyone expected?
Oh, look, I think it's shown to be able to achieve it at certain times, but it hasn't been able to consistently achieve it. And I think there's a fair bit of, look, it's a really hollow comment for me right now, but I think there's an enormous amount of upside in our midfield group. They are very, very young more often than not around the ball. And we have, Jordan Sweet playing today, not a lot of AFL football. So we get that. It's not going to be absolutely super all the time. We get why people think that there's some excitement around our footy team in the midfield. We agree. But it's not always going to be as consistent as we'd like it to be. We would like it to be really consistent, like, the Brisbane Lions have been over the last 4 or 5 years. We've shown that we're okay, but we're not. I've said this a few times. We're not one of the best teams in the comp. We sit below that. Everyone agrees. We have to keep working to change what our results have been to make sure they turn around and become what we need them to be.
All right, that's Kenny, obviously, with his press conference after the Brisbane loss. Brisbane coming to Adelaide and sort of giving a little bit of a lesson to Port Adelaide along the way. And Kenny just looks like he's devoid of confidence, not only as a coach, but he looks like he's lost a little bit of the playing group.
Yeah, look, I agree there. It was probably where, for mine, it was more damning on Sunday in terms of Nord-Port. I would have thought any Port Adelaide listed AFL player on Sunday would have turned up and gone, right,
Bust the guts on.
crash in,
Yep.
even go the other way. But it was a bizarre performance on Sunday where Nord continually took marks inside 50 with no opponent.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lack of work rate, a lack of desperation by several guys. And, yeah, for mine, I've got way more questions about Port Adelaide, where they're at after that.
Yes.
The whole weekend to think, yeah, it's not only confidence, but where in the hell's the bit of pride? And, yeah.
Well, it was very un-Port Adelaide-like, if I can say it that way, in that, players, are trying to get back into an AFL team and yet they're not performing at the level they need. And let's talk about the SANFL and Port and the Crows just for a second while we're talking about it. Last year and the year before, they made finals.
Yeah.
So that's a bit more of a damning stat on their development.
Exactly.
And we've talked about Adelaide ad nauseum about their development, but Port Adelaide's being shown in the same light right now that their development is struggling.
Oh, and okay, I'll name one player, Frankie Evans. I was bitterly disappointed with him on Sunday with just lack of effort.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about him missing goals or whatever, but just where in the hell a couple of times was some desperation and to go, hey, there's spots available next week. I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to play AFL footy, and, I just don't get it. I really don't. It takes a fair bit as a footy moron to shake my head in disbelief, and I was on Sunday with Port's lack of effort.
I watched the game on TV and I just was saying to myself that this is Port Adelaide-like. The day before, obviously, trying to honour their 2004 heroes and Nord obviously trying to do their 84 and 2014 teams, really did the job that they needed to do. And I know we're not talking SANFL right now, but Port Adelaide have been known to dig in when the times get tough, and we're not seeing that at the moment, and this is where I think the coach may have lost the players.
Well, you lose with dignity, you lose with effort, requirement of bash and crash and have a crack. 162-point combined losing margin on the weekend. And, I think we all thought, I thought Port Brisbane, 50-50 game.
Yeah, being here in Adelaide, I'm in the same boat.
Here in Adelaide, I'll go for Port. If in doubt, go the home side. Not surprised that Brisbane won.
No, me either.
But not
the way it happened.
Not that method. Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yep. Have Port Adelaide misjudged their premiership window?
Look, I think at the start of the year, I went on. Hang on. Yeah, I think Soldo's okay, but he didn't ever really set the world on fire. He was serviceable at Brisbane. Jordan Sweet had been very good at VFL level, but hadn't had many AFL opportunities. I thought, okay.
And with the midfield that they've got,
but
we think that they've got.
They recruited what they supposedly to plug the gap. I thought, Thatcher, fair few questions about him from his time at Essendon.
Yep.
And Radaglia, well, he's been at Geelong for a long time, didn't establish himself. Again, I reckon they put a lot of things in the basket on recycled, unproven players. And
did they panic a little bit in trying to fill those gaps? Because this is what it's looking like right now, is that, they hadn't made a signature, they hadn't got a trade, and all of a sudden these players became available, and it's like, we've got to do something. And I worry, and we'll talk about this a little bit with Adelaide as the remainder of the season goes on, is that they need to be very specific about what they require to help them rebuild or continue the rebuild. Port Adelaide almost look now like they panicked a little bit and went after a couple of players that may not have been what they thought they were going to be.
That's the way it's looking at the moment. Look, things can change. We all know that.
Yep.
Geez, they've got a huge game against St Kilda this week. That is massive.
Yep.
You know, probably it's one of the biggest games in Port's history this week, where because St Kilda aren't that good.
Yep.
But if they get blown away over there, wow.
Well, that'll be
the natives are restless now. But
3 weeks. 3 weeks in a row that they've sort of been blown away.
Yeah. So it's.
Are they tearing themselves apart from the inside? Crowd booing and continued speculation on coaches futuring after signing for 2 more years last year?
Oh, look, and it's been a bizarre week in that regard as well. Look,
what are your thoughts on board members and presidents and everyone being on TV and radio?
I don't believe you can do both. I've said that for ages. I don't believe Mark Rashudo. I don't believe Warren Treadray can do both. You've got to do one or the other for mine. I don't mind. You want to be in the media and critique, that's fine.
Yep.
If he's just in the media, what he said, and agree, not a problem. But you can't be on the board. That guy's got a 2-year contract and that. Now, people are saying, oh, hang on, he was the member-elect, well known that he didn't rate Ken. Well, no, hang on. You've all got to be pulling in the same direction. And for mine, I don't believe he can continue at the moment. I believe he should have had to resign by now. I think it's totally untenable.
Treadray you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just don't believe you can.
I think he got led down the garden path a little bit, but those little comments don't help.
It was dumb.
So we'll flip the side. Adelaide are in just as much
massive.
bother,
Yeah.
but they all seem to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah. I just shook my head. He should have said, look, I'm a board member. I can't comment. That's what he had to say.
Yep.
I am not in a position to comment.
But
if he said that.
But then if he's elected by the members to voice his opinion, and he's been very strong on the Hinkley contract extension right from the get-go, if he says nothing, is he in danger of not doing what the members elected him to do?
But you do that at board meetings. You don't do it on radio.
Yep. Fair call. But Zach Butters, for me, is a worry.
For mine, he should have been suspended. We brought it up last week.
We talk about stupid acts.
Yeah.
He continually is doing them because of frustration.
Should have been suspended by now. Piss week to keep fining him. No, not on. He should have got a game. You know, he should have got a... He's effectively got...
Well,
I think he's got away 3 times this year. And he's being an idiot. I'm sorry, you get a game by now.
And it's behind the play, which the AFL are trying to stamp out type of...
Not on. Yep. Not good enough.
Fair enough. Do we think that the assistant coaches at Port Adelaide needs rejigging a little bit? We've been very vocal on Nathan Bassett, obviously not being there this year just because his term had come up and they needed to make some sort of change. But if Carr does step into the main role, where does that leave everybody else? Because I think they're at least 2 or 3 good coaches away from actually achieving what they want to achieve.
The bit at the moment, now let's also be honest, if Port lose, it's Hinkley, and if they win, it's Carr. That's what the people are saying. Well, hang on. And at the moment, you have Ken sitting at games. Generally, very rarely has he got a headset on.
Yep.
So, therefore, he's not making the moves up in the box.
Well, you stole my thunder a little bit. Is it time for him to head back up to the box?
I think so. Yeah.
Get control of what he's doing.
Because at the moment, he almost looks more like the motivator on the bench, like, good try, keep going. Well, no.
Look, we're not inside the Port.
No, you're not inside it.
So we can't make comment on it. But is it a case of that Port may have looked at this year as a transitional year for Kenny and Joshy Carr?
Maybe.
And that's what it looks like from the outside.
But he's coaching again next year at the moment. So that doesn't work. That's the way it looks, but it doesn't add up. Now, you've got other coaches sitting on the bench. Simon Goodwin coaches from the bench, but he's always got the headphones on. He's always communicating with the other coaches. Well, if you're not doing that, you're not really coaching. So, I think they're in a mess at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's only going to get worse. You did talk, and we'll talk briefly about the games coming up next week, and we'll talk about St Kilda now, is that Ross Lyon is the master coach when it comes to boring football. He did release the shackles a little bit against Brisbane there a couple of weeks ago, and after quarter time, they actually looked like an attacking team. Does he go with a sledgehammer and go, you know what, we're not going to shut this down. We're going to knock them on their asses right from the get-go.
Maybe, but knowing Ross, I reckon he'll almost be the
shut it all down.
Yeah, the
don't give them nothing.
other side come in and go, right,
Yep.
I'm not going to let these bastards score.
Yep.
So, yeah.
What are your thoughts on Kenny getting the 2 years? I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, but
they were, but I get it that where they were before last year, winning 13 in a row, they had to think, but it could have been a 1 year extension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's an interesting one at the moment.
The reason I ask is because obviously Koshi has put it on record that, you know, that we'll do it in August, we'll do it in August. Well, August rolled around and they were on fire.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden he signs, they play a couple of finals and out in straight sets. And then this year they've been okay without being great, but a few holes in that forward line. Willie Rioli's probably one example. Backline has not gelled as well as it would have. Ali's almost gone backwards.
Yeah, he's gone backwards, and they're missing Willie Rioli big time. But at the moment, you'd think they're almost going to have to pay him out at the end because I think their member backlash on members who won't renew if he's coach next year. Mm-hmm. I think they're almost got to the point. I'd be very surprised if he's coaching Port Adelaide next year.
Okay, there you go. We'll keep an eye on that one, and we'll see what happens. There's a few that are saying that he might not end out the week, but I think St Kilda is, like you said, one of the most important games in their history, and if they lose that, they'll be almost burning the joint down at Alberton, which we don't like seeing. You know, you don't want to see a coach, get sacked or moved on, but sometimes it just becomes too untenable.
It could be very ironic. Neil Craig's last game was against St Kilda, but that was done professionally and together. Where this one.
Well, Hinkley might come out and go, look, I'm done. But at the end of the day, it's probably someone from inside the club that has sort of said, maybe you might need to move on. Yeah. It's a messy situation. All right, let's move across the road to Adelaide. Adelaide obviously had the bye last week, but
it's their best week for ages, Adelaide.
Spotlight being taken off of them during the bye week, which was probably the best thing that could have happened. Gives them a chance to reset and refocus a little bit. But what are some interesting possibilities or solutions to some of their problems for the remainder of the year? They seem under-resourced. I think that's probably come out in the last couple of weeks, in the coaching department, that is.
Yeah, they desperately need Thilthorpe back. And look, I think Thilthorpe now, you're looking, it's very damning with Adelaide Football Club at the moment that you can still make a very good case that Taylor Walker's their most important player. Now, at the age of 33, that's a huge worry for the future.
And he's got a contract on hold at the moment as to what
the next... all his injuries and all that, so we just got to wait and see there. But Adelaide Football Club desperately need Thilthorpe to come through and be an A-grader. Now, he's hardly played. Now, there's talk that he's going to be bought straight back in this week.
Well, I was going to ask about that. That's a bit dangerous, don't you think?
Either way on that. But, you know, they do tick off of how much training you've done. It's all sports science, and hey, they've got Burgess there. That's part of that reason. So I'm not so much that way, but I'm saying if, and let's be honest, he's only showed promise at times. He hasn't gone through yet.
A bit like Fogarty.
Yeah, he's got to be if he doesn't develop into an A-grader, I think Adelaide are in a fair bit of pain for another rebuild coming, and realistically could be down for another 3 to 5 years.
Is Taylor Walker still being in that forward line hindering the Thilthorpe and Fogarty progression?
Well, Thilthorpe hasn't played this year, so we can't say that.
We can't say that, but I'm saying in the last few years.
No, I don't think so. I think he needs to teach them where to go to and where to run to, and I still don't think Fogarty's great in that regard.
No.
You know,
beautiful kick, beautiful grab, but
footy nous, when to hold, when to go, when to use the arse.
Yep.
I think there's still a lot of things there, which Taylor Walker is very good at teaching.
Mm-hmm. So then he's almost worth the 1 year contract or the extension on the basis that they're still not quite where they want to be and they've taken a step backwards to try and go forward.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Very interesting. Adelaide, 2 assistant coaches were contacted last year but didn't end up arriving at West Lakes. What makes that situation change this time round?
One, James Rahilly's obviously been missed probably more than they realised. Mm-hmm. I can't believe that Adelaide Football Club did not interview Nathan Bassett.
Yep.
Went and pointed Homch and didn't interview Nathan Bassett for mine was extraordinary. I think that's like a due diligence as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. But shouldn't you be casting the net far and wide anyway,
exactly.
Regardless?
But I just can't work out why he wasn't interviewed. I really can't.
Now, obviously, Brett Montgomery has been slated as a potential option on the basis that because of the Kohler living around arrangement up in Greater Western Sydney, that he might be looking for an opportunity back here in Adelaide. From all accounts, a really good coach, but can be a bit, not divisive is probably the wrong word, but can be very jarring as far as making his point known and giving you that opposite debate. Is that a good thing for Adelaide right at the moment?
It's all from the outside. It's a bit hard to judge on that one. And look, I admit I'm trying to think whether his son's to draft this year or next year. I'm going to have to check that up. So that's probably something to come into the play
fact
as
that,
well, and whether Port pick him up, and who knows. Mm-hmm. So there's probably a bit of water to go under that bridge as well. Just as there is for Neil Baum.
Well, you've just stolen my thunder and cut my lunch a little bit. I was going to say we saw the interview with Barmy last week. I think we sort of understand, maybe most Crows fans would love it to happen, but we sort of understand that Channel 7 had packaged that up to make it sort of sound like he's job interviewing for the Crows. We've obviously had Barmy on the show, and we know a little bit in the background that, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge there, but in doing their due diligence, they should at least have a word to him.
I would think they would, but at the moment he hasn't been spoken to. Yeah. So the way it was done by Channel 7, it looked like it was a fake complete that it was done. It was smart the way they edited it.
Yes. Well, the old clickbait.
Yeah. And look, all I'll say is that, yes, I have spoken to Neil. Yes, there has not been anything official. It hasn't moved on. Yes, he was going to come to Adelaide last time. Yep. Yes, Neil actually did confirm that publicly, which he probably hasn't done before a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So that was coming. So, look, it's a possibility, but...
Now, is that something that the AFL might get involved with?
No,
that decision?
No, it'd be Adelaide.
Just straight up Adelaide?
Straight Adelaide Football Club and chat with Barmy and how much he wants to do. He's probably not really sure.
Yep.
And what role it'd be. So there's a lot of things there. There's put it this way, it could happen, but there's a lot of water to go under the bridge. A hell of a lot of water to go under the bridge.
No, fair call. Are you surprised right at this very moment that he hasn't been approached just yet? Or
no, not really.
Because he's still working with Richmond. Is it a case of Adelaide being the nice guy here and waiting until things are done and dusted at Richmond before he makes that call?
I think there's a few things to be sorted out with Neil personally, where he was living, where he's going to travel and all that. So there's a few things for him and Carmel to sort out yet.
Yep.
Look, as I said, a lot of water. Let's just wait and see.
Yep. All right, we'll obviously talk more about Adelaide next week. We'll run through some of the results very, very quickly, and then we'll get on to the AFL hot topics. But Carlton stamping their authority with a 63-point win over Geelong.
Yeah, they were just way too good. It really looked like the challenger versus to Father Time has caught up with Geelong.
I've got this, again, a bit of a question without notice, and we'll find out a little bit more tonight. Where are you on the Patrick Dangerfield tackle?
I didn't think it was that bad. I thought he did try and bring him to the ground. I thought he did try and turn. For mine, it's not a...
Because he could have...
He could have buried him.
He could have pushed forward and buried him.
And then you would have gone bang, one or two games for sure. But for mine, I did think he tried to do the right thing. And it is hard. It was actually... There was a Nord player on Sunday where we thought he may have been possibly, but it didn't. And spoke about with him after the game, and he said, geez, I was thinking on the tackle, I was trying to do this and that. So it has made it bloody complicated what the players are trying to do and trying to think of at the time.
So it's not as instinctive anymore.
Yeah, and out of that, I for mine, I thought Patrick Dangerfield on that one deserved the benefit of the doubt. That's how I felt.
And I agree with you 100% there. The only thing that is a question mark for me is the pinning of the two arms.
I know.
But when you're making tackles, no matter whether it's 25 years ago or it's these days, your objective is to pin both arms and do the tackle. It's more about where you're dropping and how you're dropping. And I thought Dangerfield relatively executed that to perfection. So anyway, the Giants and Sydney. Sydney once again taking the Battle of the Bridge by 27 points.
Yeah, and I thought probably the final margin flattered GWS a bit. They probably took the foot off the pedal, but still well had it under control.
Yep. Melbourne just getting up over North Melbourne by 3 points.
Yeah, probably game had gone another minute or two. It might have. So the D certainly stopped. I admit I went to bed at 3/4 time. I thought, no, that game's over.
Yep.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on North for the last month and a half? Because they've
at least there's some progression.
There's some competitiveness there, isn't there? Essendon won by 30 points over the West Coast Eagles. Now I've got on my hot topics. Do we trust Essendon yet, even though they did beat the Eagles by 30 points in Melbourne?
I thought it was a bit damning them against Carlton, where Carlton, I thought, did that on the bit and did that pretty easily, that game. So, Essendon play Collingwood in a couple of weeks. I think there's a few more tests. For me, the jury's still out on Essendon.
Do you see them making the finals?
I think they'll make the 8, but where they are at the moment.
Big worry. Fremantle getting up over the Suns.
Yeah, big game that. It really was. And they kicked the first 2 goals of the game, the Suns, and you thought
they've come to play.
Yeah, maybe here because we were following it at the home from the home of football.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they did. And probably Dick Tracy for Fremantle starting to stamp that he looks like he may be a genuine key forward. Where we thought at the past he's more a bit. I think might be okay. Where he's looking like, hey, this guy might be a bit better than we realised.
Yep.
And as we know, key forwards just don't grow on trees.
Unfortunately, they don't. All right, let's do some hot topics before we do our tips for the week. Congratulations to Chris McDermott and Michael Graham, or the Flash, in the Australian Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, great recognition for just 2 guys. Look, Chris McDermott, workhorse in footy. Are
you surprised his comments about him not having any connection with the Adelaide Football Club?
Yeah, it is a bit disappointing. I think there's a bit of blood there. I don't know the full story.
Yep.
I was hoping it might have been fixed by now. There's a bit of question marks Adelaide Football Club in that regard.
Well, they've tried to fix most of it, and the camp obviously was the one thing that sorted a lot of that out. You would have thought that this relationship would have been repaired by now.
Yeah, it's an
interesting one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And look, Michael Graham was brilliant in terms of Chris McDermott was the hard worker. Fantastic state record as well.
Mm-hmm.
Got absolutely everything out of him. I still think he had more natural ability in cricket. That's a personal one. As a keeper, as a kid,
yep.
I really rated him massively. Where footy, I just think he was just the bum down, work your ass off, and fantastic elite leader.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, he's been incredible off the ground with Little Heroes.
Yep, various charities
as well.
Yep.
Where Michael Graham, ridiculous ability, flash. He was explosively quick. I'm still waiting for the umpire to blow the whistle for running too far in 76 in the 76 first semi, where he ran laps of Football Park.
I thought you might bring that up.
Yeah. So Sturt supporters whinge about the mark of the year by Gags in the 78 grand final. Well, yeah, Flash ran 300 metres, but he was brilliant, and great recognition for both. Albie Menzel was there. I have got some photos from Albie sent through from the night.
Yes.
I reckon Albie and Flash there. I reckon the bar would have got a fair workout.
Yeah,
yes.
Obviously, you mentioned at the end of last week's episode about Fred Chock-a-Block being recognised. I think that was a nice special touch, not only for you personally, but I think that for the Australian Hall of Fame there to recognise it. But unfortunately, they've done something where they've unfortunately passed on a player that was still alive, and yet the AFL was a bit slow to come out and sort of say, look, we made a mistake. It's all good. That gets down to what you were saying last week about if you make a mistake, just admit that you've made the mistake. Took them days and days and days to come and actually say, look, we're sorry.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one, though. That's just one which
shows where the AFL's at, doesn't it?
just can't do that.
Yep.
That's an unforgivable one.
All right, mate, we're going to talk competitive balance. Still needs some work after suggestions that week one of the final should be played away for all Victorian teams.
Yeah, good on Mark Evans. I don't mind that. It's coming out swinging. Look, we know that there's no chance it's going to happen whatsoever, but...
Keep throwing up ideas.
Yeah, look, I just think it's farcical that we all acknowledge it's still an extended VFL. You know, there's still things like, you think back originally where... Bryce Gibbs didn't qualify despite the fact that Ross Gibbs nearly played 300 games.
Yeah.
You know, there was crazy things like that where the father-son was still just so weighted to the Victorian sides. You know, Richmond and Collingwood never leave Melbourne. We know Richmond get lost going to Marvel. You know, things like that where it's...
Essendon have got that draw coming up where they've got about 6, 7 or the last 8 or something.
It's just so frustrating. And, again... It's an extended VFL, and I reckon good on Mark Evans for just coming out swinging. And hopefully, look, he's a smart administrator, and hopefully him and Tom Harley can work together and just fight against this other win when now they're complaining about the academies, which Victorian clubs get so much, where you've got to keep getting interest on the Eastern Seaboard. Yep. You're fighting rugby. You're competing for people.
It's a non-traditional state of football.
Yeah. Oh, I just very small-minded and that side of things. And the whole worry, Gold Coast still haven't played a final yet. So, you know, I just think just ridiculous.
Yep. And Sydney have been a good operated club for a great many years, almost since Barassi went up there and Paul Roos. So they're just doing things right at the moment and they're reaping the rewards for all the effort that they're putting in. So... Anyway, all right, let's do some quick handballs, mate. Should the 25-metre penalty be reintroduced for less technical offences?
Yes.
Should Port and the Crows be worried about the lack of development their own doing? Thoughts?
Yes, and yes.
Players staging Stephen May trying for a free kick. Is that cheating or fine, or should he got a week?
Cheating, and it's a game. Now we have duty of care. And the players have a responsibility, and they've gone with that. The Players Association have gone with that. So everyone complaining about, you know, the sling tackle, that side of things in general, the players have gone with their responsibility. Well, there's a responsibility on the other side not to try and get that guy suspended, not try and cheat. And I'm sorry, for mine, I would have given him a game.
Yep. If you want to stamp it out pretty quickly, it would have been a good idea to do it. Obviously, I've already asked, do we trust Essendon yet? You've already sort of said we'll wait and see on that one. I agree. Snakes and Ladders sees Port drop again, but Brisbane stocks are rising.
Yeah. It's fun. Look, I think we all thought, Brisbane are too far back. They're bombed, but at the moment, they're just building. And, let's face it, the other way now where the finals series where you have that week off, there's not the advantage to the top 4 there used to be.
Yep.
Now, okay, it was 2016, but Western Bulldogs did win it from 7th. It has happened.
It'll happen again.
Form there for a month, Yep.
So, who's under more pressure? Hinkley, Nix? What about Beveridge, Lyons, Simpson and Fagan? Which one of those do you think's under the most pressure?
At the moment, Hinkley.
What about a fortnight ago?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think there's still pressure on Lyon a lot as well, and I think there's pressure on Nix.
Yep. Beveridge,
there's a bit of worry there. Like there's talks that you've got thoughts that Smith will leave, and that he hasn't re-signed. And considering he hasn't played this year and hasn't re-signed, so it looks like that they reckon
that could happen.
They've also got Lobb, who looks like he might want out. McRae and Daniel up their futures despite their sign being up in the air. So, it's a fair bit of question and marks at the kennel. And,
it's a worry.
I think there's a bit of pressure on a few people at the moment.
Yep, and we'll obviously cover that over the next few weeks. All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we'll give our tips for this week, and then we'll get into the SANFL and the SNFLW and the cricket.
Yep.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
All right, let's do some tips for this week. Friday night, the Lions v Melbourne.
I'll go the Lions.
It's up in the Gabba, so I'm going to go the Lions as well, and going on recent form. North Melbourne and the Bulldogs. This becomes a bit of a tantalising game on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I'll still go the Bulldogs.
Sydney v the Dockers at the SCG.
Sydney.
Yes, Sydney for me. Suns v Collingwood, sold out stadium from the beginning of the week. Can you believe that?
It'll virtually be at least 50-50. If anything, Collingwood will probably have more support up there. I'll go for Collingwood.
I'm going to go to the Suns.
Yeah,
just
it's
to
a 50-50 game.
Just to continue their form.
Collingwood did win there last year with a good crowd, and there was big support there for Collingwood. So, it's probably less of a home game this week. So, it's an interesting one.
It is. Adelaide v the Giants.
I'll go the Giants.
I'm going to go the Giants as well. Geelong v Essendon. This is a good test because Geelong are going to be... It's at the MCG.
Okay, I'll go Essendon since it's at the G.
I'm going to go the Cats just. St Kilda v Port Adelaide. We did talk about it earlier. It's a big game.
I still don't trust St Kilda.
It's at Marvel, and that's the only reason I'm going to pick
Yeah,
St Kilda.
Port have got a fantastic... I think it's 10 out of their last 11 against St Kilda. So surely that turns at some stage as well. Toss the coin. I'll go the Saints.
At home, I'm going to go the Saints as well. Richmond v Carlton. Too many injuries for Richmond for me. And obviously being a Blues man, I'm quite happy that they are showing subtle signs of improvement. And
it's more than subtle.
Well, yeah, but it's a slow progression.
Yeah, I like the tag who's come in. For mine,
Chincotta.
I like Chincotta, how footy smart he is. He does a lot of 1%ers. Just some smart blocks.
Yep.
Just contributes. I really like him.
He just opens up other players. That makes it a lot easier for the likes of Cripps and Walsh and anybody else squirting through there to do their job. And to finish us off over in the West there, West Coast Eagles v the Hawks with Harley Reid. Looks like he'll be back.
Yeah. Oh, geez, I wish he'd been back last weekend, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the SANFL. Obviously, half the teams had a bit of a bye last week, as they did the week before. But we'll start off with Norwood defeating Port Adelaide in the Premiership reunion from 1984 and 2014. Yeah,
and it was good to catch up with a few of the guys after the game. I didn't get to anything else, unfortunately, for the weekend. We've spoken about that off air.
Mm-hmm.
But great to catch up with Greg Thomas and Schmarley and a few guys in that after the game.
Yep.
K-Mac was over from Melbourne and that side of things.
And really good that Norwood could actually celebrate, those premierships against the traditional rivals. I know that Port Adelaide and Port Adelaide in the AFL, it's not quite the same as what it used to be, but at the end of the day, you can only beat who you're playing on the day, and Port Adelaide is still under that one banner, aren't they?
Yep.
Sturt just getting up over North Adelaide. I was going to say Northern Territory for some reason. I don't know why. Sturt getting up over North Adelaide there. A bit of a dour clash there, and North Adelaide got the jump on Sturt.
Yeah, and then Sturt just a bit 5 points of difference in time on. So it was game up for grabs, but Sturt just finished that little bit too strong.
Very polished, and obviously them being back at Thomas Farms Oval, or Unley Oval, where they've got, I think, their next couple there as well. So they've done the hard work playing away while the oval was being resurfaced, and now they're reaping the rewards. And Glenelg doing what they needed to do against West Adelaide.
Yep, just did what they had to do.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to round 12, Port Adelaide v Central Districts. Centrals for me. North Adelaide v Woodville West Torrens.
Woodville West Torrens.
West Torrens for me. Sturt v West Adelaide.
Sturt.
Glenelg v Adelaide.
Glenelg.
And the Panthers v the Redlegs.
Nord.
I'll go Nord there as well. Some interesting matchups there, but Norwood back on top of the ladder by percentage. Glenelg obviously sitting second, and Sturt sitting third. With a raft of teams, obviously Sturt, Woodville West Torrens, and Centrals.
The five's been decided, so there's a gap then. Yeah.
And just without double, triple checking it, it looks like everybody that's in the five is playing everybody outside the five this week.
Yeah.
So we should see basically the five remain where it is. It's now jockeying for
it'd be
position.
interesting if there's one upset, because at the moment that looks a really easy round to tip.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the SANFLW. Some good results for South Adelaide over Glenelg and Norwood over Centrals in the semi-finals that were played last weekend.
Yeah, and Shelby Smith announcing her retirement. Shelby's been fantastic ambassador, one of the dominant players of women's footy. We have a few of the leaders have retired. You know, Jess Edwards from North and that side of things. But yeah, it was down the wire, and Nord getting up by 5 points. Centrals were 2 goals up in the third quarter, and Nord came home there and missed a goal where Nord hit the post, and Centrals took the ball down, and their half-forward line and the siren went. So, yeah.
Nord needed a bit of luck. They had been a little bit unlucky a few times there, but we've said it probably 3 or 4 weeks out from the finals that South Adelaide looked like the team to beat.
Yeah, I think
Norwood drew with Glenelg the last time that they met. Where do we sort of see that game playing out? Obviously, the preliminary final this weekend.
I'm going to go for Nord. I think Nord's just displaying a bit better Glenelg's form overall has dropped a fair bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go there, but yeah, I just think South a fair bit in front of either, really.
Oh, fair call. Obviously, it being played at Strata Ranana Stadium there, Saturday the 29th at 12:15. So obviously, any of the SANFLW fans get on down. We reckon South might be the team to beat, but hey, you got to get to the big dance, and anything can happen.
Yep, exactly.
All right, let's move on to cricket. Australia didn't finish the T20 they would have liked or wanted themselves, but a bit of controversy with a Afghan player going down like he'd been shot in the back of the leg, with a few overs just gone and a bit of rain delay and everything like that, and now it keeps Australia out of it. I know you're not a T20 fan, but I've never seen anything like that happen on any sporting field, let alone a cricket field.
Look, a lot of things queried there. Look, for mine, I think there was a few things. A bit of the timing when the games weren't great back here either way. Look, I can't deny I'm not, 2020. I actually like 2020 at community level. I think it's got its place there. For mine at international level, it's just a ho-hum. And like, if Australia lost a test series, I'd be,
devastated.
Yeah, a bit. Well, we're 2020. Yeah, whatever. Yep. Yeah, that's me. Look, pretty average performance where they losing against Afghanistan, and then look, Sharma's a class act, and he was just too good last night.
Don't deny India at all, but I'm saying a couple of the countries where you would have thought,
losing to Afghanistan is
through everything.
Is pretty average, and there was some very average fielding. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Wade missing his stumping as well.
Mm-hmm. Do Australia continue to take this competition seriously, considering that it was compromised right from the get-go?
Yeah, look, I still thought, and interesting enough, you've got it on the running sheet, Marcus Stoinis just hasn't ticked the boxes. There's still I think he's had a lot of opportunities to not come through in the crunch. He's done it occasionally in almost dead games, whatever, but just when it matters. And
where on the we'll flip the coin here and go Travis Head. Absolutely brilliant in the last game, trying to save, obviously, Australia's neck a little bit. And he, since 2020, 2021, has really stepped up to the plate when they've needed him the most.
Yeah. And,
so the reason I ask whether Australia take this seriously, and I know you're not a T20 fan, but the reason I ask it, and it sort of leads me into my next point, is the promotion of cricket in general, is it as good as it can be?
It's not. I still think it's a mismatch. Like I hate the programming. I hate how much the Sheffield Shield is ignored. And look, I think that's going to, and it has. You have a look now with Australia's batting. It's nowhere near the depth we used to have, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Stark's probably only, not sure how much longer he's got. They're lucky that they've had a superstar in Cummins come through, but I'm not sure where the next batch is. There's no one bashing the door down.
Mm-hmm.
There's not there's no young Ponting coming through where you went, shit, hey, we've got one coming.
This guy's going to be great.
The landed two heads. Or you had Adam Gilchrist dominating a Shield final here, where those of us who followed Shield cricket were going, hey, this guy's really special. Hasn't debuted yet, but you wait and see. And other people going, hey, is he that good? I said, yeah.
Mm.
And then when he did have, wow. Well, there's nothing like that now.
So obviously we've talked about this a bit, and again, a question without notice in that the Sheffield Shield has been sort of left by the wayside a little bit.
And that really angers me.
Where do you see not only the Sheffield Shield but also the Test matches where the crowds have just been non-existent? Do we see them being moved to, I hate to say it, but suburban grounds?
Oh, no, not in Australia. Australia, India and England are still fine at Test level, but it's the worry of the other countries where the big three have got to carry the others. Now, there's got to be stuff done there to make sure.
Well, I don't think they're doing it as well as they could be.
That's
not. Why I asked the question.
I think world cricket, Australia's crowds are still, you got to remember, Australia playing these vast, huge stadiums. I think really the only state where there's a huge question mark is WA. No, South Australia, fine, is WA. Now, also, let's be real here too. The last two Test matches South Australia have had, we've very generously been given the West Indies the last 2 years who were as competitive as Port Adelaide were on the weekend.
Because people will turn up.
Yeah, because we go like it's bullshit.
Some interesting thoughts there, mate. We'll touch base on those as we go along. All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, Anthony Harvey, part 2.
Past players, past legends.
I admit, it was just a relief when we won that prelim final. I was very confident, and I reckon Macca was fantastic with that next week. No, do the crime, do the time. No, we're not going to try and do anything stupid. We're not caught bullshit. No, I was guilty. Move on.
Yeah. I remember at the start of that grand final week where there was a lot of noise made about taking legal action and getting the lawyers in, and I remember being pulled into a meeting with with Rhodey and Macca and a few of the other leaders, and Macca I remember standing up and just saying, "Nah, this is not happening. We're just moving ahead. We've got a job to do, and we're not going to sway from what we have to do." So, as always, Macca's team before himself. So, it was no surprise really.
And so any different nerves with being acting captain for the GF at all halves?
Yeah, more for the media, I guess. You have to do, which you're just not used to, I guess. So, being thrust in the spotlight a lot is probably not an area that that I jump up and down trying to get. So,
it's not you.
So it was a bit daunting for me, but an honour at the same time. And there's always, even when I did the next year I was co-captain with Macca, and then I took over for him. I always thought it's such a hard act to follow because I've played with one of the greatest captains ever. So I was a totally different captain to what Macca was. So I guess you've got to do it your own way and not sway from that.
And of course,
well, hang on. Let's just go back a second there. You've obviously come over from Victoria. You moved on from St Kilda, come to Norwood. You finally get to play in a grand final. You've talked about obviously being the acting captain, but what are your memories of the day itself in the way that, obviously everything transpires a little bit differently on grand final day? Was there a sense around that everybody, that the job needed to be done?
Yeah, I think my most vivid memory started the day before at the parade. And I remember we getting introduced and just looking across to the port team and then looking at our team and thinking, we should be okay here. We should go in with a really, a bag full of confidence. So, and I could see that our players had that look too, that we were, and there was we had that all season. We were very confident in what we'd done. We had a couple of hiccups along the way, but we didn't really sway from what we did, and Rhodey was really good in keeping us on track. So, that day before, and then the day of, it's a bit of a blur, but there's certain moments that I really remember. But overall, it's hard to recollect everything, and because it's such a big day, and even afterwards, it went on for hours afterwards, and just seeing so many people back at the parade I'd never seen anything like it. So it was unbelievable.
And that night, so upstairs with you that night, and I vividly remember Robert being blown away by how many people were there. And he said, "Hey, we wouldn't have got any more than if St Kilda had won." He generally couldn't believe it. And I may have had a fair few at that stage, Pete, and I may have said, "Look, Pal, you might be the best footballer in the country. We don't really give a stuff about that. Where in the hell's your bloody better half tonight?" And he had a bewildered look, and you burst out laughing, and bewildered. You'd obviously had more than a few at that stage, and he sort of looked at, what the hell was that? But then he laughed. So it was amusing in terms of that regard too.
Yeah. So there's a couple of stories there. Like I remember him being a bit overawed by and taken aback about like meeting Macca, and I think Aishi was there.
Yes,
I reckon, and he was going around getting autographs off some of our players, and I think he went to get Macca's autograph, and Macca just laughed at him and said, "You're kidding, aren't you?" So. But that, as the funny thing is, that weekend actually doubled as his Bucks weekend. So
okay.
So he'd booked that weekend thinking hoping that we'd make the grand final, and it did. So and he just come off the '97 grand final loss the week before to the Crows. So he'd had quite a big week, and then he'd had his Bucks weekend. So, and the Saturday night before, he'd gone out as you do on your Bucks and had a big night, and gone home and crashed back at the hotel. And as your good mates do, they managed to lift his mattress and carry him out of his room into the elevator, down the elevator into the foyer, and leave him there to sleep in the foyer. So he woke up the next morning with a young family checking in, looking at him. So in just his jock. So he had a big weekend. So I was surprised he was still, coherent.
No, he was fine still, actually. And I thought it was, look, I thought he showed, in all seriousness, I thought he showed a hell of a lot of character. Look, and obviously showed you two are pretty close, and the Harvey family in general, very close and very football-orientated family. But I thought he showed I thought it was fantastic that he was there. It could have been easily enough to go, nah, I've had a guts full of footy. We've lost the grand final. I don't want to be around. But no, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he always showed great support for me in my footy. I even remember, I think, when I did get delisted to St Kilda, I think he rang Bernie Quinlan, who was coaching Fitzroy at the time, to see if I could, get a pre-season out there. So, he did look out for me, which I'm grateful for. So, yeah.
You both sort of stole my thunder a little bit there. I was going to ask that, obviously, Robert losing the 97 flag and then you winning the SANFL 97 flag. Was there a little bit of a rivalry there between brothers going, I got one, you didn't, or was it a case of don't poke the bear?
All. Being a staunch Saints sport at the time, it was hurting me just as much when they lost. So yeah, it was a hard one to take. And I remember because we had the prelim final the next day after the AFL Grand Final, and I remember waking up the next morning feeling drained, and I know I didn't play that well in the prelim final, and maybe that had a lot to do with it. Maybe I was just mentally drained from watching the grand final the day before. So,
and so then 98 we sort of blew it a little bit, and then 99 we'll keep moving, and you go whatever direction you want here, Halves, as well. So with 99, you were carrying injury. Sponge, Scott Rodney Doreen started on the bench carrying injury.
Yeah.
And we knew that we were right on the edge of hitting the wall. And ironically, probably Scott Rodney should have come on a few minutes earlier, as it turned out, because he dominated when he came on. But I reckon Rhodey did that really well, coached well. And we were a Lenny Pascoe mark away from a bloody spoil from Tom Carr, from Roger Jones, from winning the flag, mate. So it was a bit of frustration there.
It's such a fine line. Like,
it is,
I guess, isn't it? Back in those days, there was no rotations off the bench. So, and like Scotty would have been, in the starting lineup, if he'd been fit. But it was just, when do you bring him on? I went in with a hamstring tear, which I think lasted a half or so. And it was such a great final series for us. Like, we came from fifth, and we just got over the line on a couple of those games.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Eagles
we
game.
weren't expected to win. So, so I think we went in with no expectations. It was there was no pressure on us. I think all the pressure was on Port. So, and we were sort of riding that wave of winning a few close games, and we're up and about, and a Norwood Port game at any time can go either way, and it's always a lot of feeling in them. So, it was a great game. I think I haven't watched it back.
No, I've never watched it again either.
We'll add it as part of this interview. We'll add a little bit of it, but not much.
I can confidently say I've never watched an Ord losing grand final. I made myself watch a grand final I coached in again. Is the only time I've done anything without, because I wanted to see.
So you're saying if anyone out there wants to torture you, tie you down and make you watch a losing Nord grand final.
Or the 96
prelim.
Prelim.
So I might have been in hospital in the 96 one, crook, and a radio came off second best halves, and this nurse sprinted in thinking I collapsed. And football is that all? And I was certainly wasn't her favourite patient at Burnside Hospital. So yes.
Now, in amongst all of that, you played a couple of state games. What years? What years were they, mate?
I think my first one was 96, and that was to WA. And I think I played on the bench for the first half or so. But I do remember that game was at Subiaco, and Jason Miller was in the state team that year. And he, for the first half, and it was really wet, and he just dominated that game for the first half and set up our win. So I know I live with him, and he's a good mate of mine. But gee, he was on,
He was bloody good. Unfortunately, he
had-
wasn't consistent, but geez, when he was on,
Yeah.
no,
Well,
he could.
When I
take a
started
game
playing,
apart.
when I debuted at Centrals in that season, he played at centre half back, but then, then he got moved to centre half forward for that first half of that season, and he, deservedly earned that state game because he was dominating at centre half forward. So, I think if he just had a little bit more luck.
Yeah,
I
he
think,
got a few head knocks as well. Yeah, he was a bit unlucky.
And he had a few injuries, a few knocks. So he's a talented kid.
And
sorry, the other state game was in '99.
Okay.
So that was at Victoria MCG. So that was another wet game. So it was a good experience. We had a young Matthew Pavlich playing for us.
And you did win the Foss Williams medal half, so you must have gone okay that day.
Well, yeah. Well, funny thing is, I did start on the bench again, but I didn't have to sit on there for too long this time. So I think I lasted, 15 minutes on the bench, and then came on and, managed to get a few kicks. I kicked a lot of points. I remember that. I didn't kick straight. So, but we got over the line. We had a really good team that year. Some really good players.
You talked about Rhodey obviously being majority your coach at Norwood, apart from Neil Craig there.
Yep.
What are some of the takeaways from Rhodey?
I think one of the good things about Rhodey, he just didn't beat around the bush. He just kept it simple. And it was very black and white. Blokes knew what they had to do and knew their role. So nothing was complicated. And he did have a really good relationship with the players. So there was that respect both ways. So, I've had a couple of coaches in my younger years that, tried to overcoach a bit, I think. But he knew that the line of that, a fine line and a good balance of, when to let the leaders do their stuff as well. So he was quite good at doing that.
And who were your coaches for the state games?
The state game, I had Alan Stewart.
Yeah, pretty well regarded.
Yep.
Yeah. Can't remember the first one. Sorry.
That's all right. How about the winning? How much did winning the Norwood Best and Fairest? So by that stage, you've been at Norwood for a while, and you sort of realised the history of Norwood Footy Club because that's something you always took an interest in. How much of an honour did you regard that as, Halves?
That was a bit overawing at the time. I guess I'd been there. What was that? 98.
Yeah.
So I'd been there 95, 96, 97, and I'd come in the top four each year. And I actually didn't think 98 was my best year, so I thought I was quite lucky to win it that year.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a great honour. I think I had a better year in 97, but you're competing against Jarman McIntosh for votes there. So, and I did miss. I think I'd missed the first 7 or 8 games of the 97 season and came second to Jars. So, but that 98 season, I guess it was a bit disappointing in terms of where we finished and how we finished. So I think that's what I took away from that season. And winning the Best and Fairest was a great honour, but it would have been great to be able to do that in a season where we were contending.
Okay, so 99, so we've lost the grand final. 2000 and 2001, playing under the great man in terms of Neville Roberts. What were your thoughts there? Because I admit I'm going to come in pretty strong at the end of 2001. I'm going to come in there. I turned up at the Red Leafs Club that night, and I was quite angry because we'd had a lot of injuries, and I didn't think we lost the first semi, but I didn't think we were that bad or anything. And I thought Neville was a bit ostracised that night, and I just thought, in terms of the administration that night, didn't treat a Nord great with the respect he deserved. That's how I felt. What did you think in terms of playing under Neville, mate?
I've got nothing but respect for Neville.
Yeah.
He backed me into the hilt, so I owe Neville a lot. He was probably not the most personable coach, like one-on-one, but like he did garner the respect of the group, and which I really admired. But I know there was a few times when people were doubting me as well, even as captain. So, and Neville was like stoic in my defence a lot of the time. So, yeah, I thought he was great for me, but he mightn't have been good for some of the other players. But like I said, I loved him.
Yeah, I admit I'm very much in the Neville Roberts camp there. And, of course, then your last year, as it turned out, you played under Macca.
Yep.
Yeah, so you played with him and all that, and then playing under him. Bit disappointing that we lost the prelim final there. But, yeah, what did you think there, mate, as well? And just...
Yeah, you go from Neville to Macca, two like greats of the club, but two totally different coaches. Like Neville was like very intense, and I think some players may have been like really scared of him, but whereas Macca was a lot more nurturing. It's like I think he knew every under 19, every reserves player, so he was there all the time, and he would work so hard. I think the players loved having Macca there, and what he offered to us. So, but I think the bad thing for Macca, the timing for him to coach at Norwood wasn't the right time.
No, it was a bit early.
So we were in off field. We were in a bad state.
Yeah.
We'd lost a few players, so and it was just an unfortunate timing for Macca.
Financially, we weren't great. Yeah, there were a few off-field more than murmurings.
We lost the club rooms.
And
financially, we're struggling.
And so, did your body just basically start to tell you that was it? In a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I remember. So the start of what would that be? 2003 season. So I, in a trial game, did my ACL.
That's right. Yeah.
So had to have that whole season off. But then started the next season. I ripped my pec off the bone. In the gym, of all places. And then, so I didn't come back till about round 6 of that season. So, and my first game in the reserves, 15 minutes in, my knee collapsed on me again. So, so it was either have another reconstruction on the ACL, and they said there was no guarantee they could get it any tighter. Or that was it. So,
how's that influenced life since in that way, Harves?
Oh, greatly, yeah. Because I love playing footy and I love playing for Norwood. So, I actually moved away. So I moved up to the hills.
Yes, yeah.
To get away from footy because I knew I couldn't play. So, yeah, it was a tough time.
And you've stayed there basically ever since, haven't you, Harves?
Sorry?
You've basically stayed there. You still up in the hills now?
Yeah, still in the hills. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I only thought I'd be in the hills for a year, but I loved it up here. So I did go back to Melbourne for 3 years and lived in Carlton with a young family, which was a great experience. So, but we're always going to come back to the hills to live with a family, the young family, which is a great environment for the kids to live in.
Did coaching ever cross your mind? I know you said you wanted to get away from it for a little while, but after you had got away for a little while, did you sort of contemplate maybe doing some coaching?
Yeah, always never wanted to be a head coach.
Yep.
But I always thought I'd be more valuable as a mentor to kids and to players. So I've been involved with the Onkaparinga Valley Footy Club for a few years now. So, and I'm an assistant coach in the A's. And either been assistant or fitness coach for
I thought I knew
the
you'd done
last
a bit of the fitness
5 or 6 years.
Yep. So, and how's your? Sorry, I probably didn't explain the question as well as I should have. How's your knee affecting everything now in terms of you did so much damage to it? Is it, what do you like?
Yeah,
Because, mate, I was limping one night at a meeting at Nord, and Barter said, what in the hell have you done? And I said, Barter, just because you happen to be good at footy and I happen to be shit house, injuries don't differentiate, and that sort of thing. And, and my knees, like, I can't even walk up and downstairs now. So, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I actually thought, because I really still wanted to play, so I actually tried to play a few games later that season up at the Bulldogs up here, and only lasted till the second game, and then it gave way again. So after that, I could run okay.
You're in front of me, Harves.
But just like twisting and turning, it was no good. So I still have a lot of trouble with it today. But I got actually a couple of years after I finished playing, I got diagnosed with a bad hip. So, and I always see our old club doctor, Jeff Verrill, Chopper.
Yes, Chopper, yep.
So he diagnosed that I would probably need a hip replacement at some stage, and I'd do well if I didn't have it before I was 50. And I'm now 51 and I still haven't had it. So I've managed to get through okay without having that done yet. So it's some days it's good, but some days it's bad. But it's all part of playing footy, I guess.
Let me guess, the colder ones are a little tougher than the warmer ones.
Yeah, that's more on my knee. Yeah, my hip doesn't seem to like matter what the weather's like. Some days it's good, some days it's bad. Some days I might do a lot on it, it might be good. Some days I might do nothing, and it might be really bad. So it's just pot luck with that one.
And so you're trying to think your lad's name.
I've got two boys, Henry and Will. Henry's 20, and he plays just at Onkers.
Yep.
And Will's under 18s at Onkers, but he's also on the 18s list at Norwood.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
So he's played a couple of games down there, which he's loved. So.
And thoughts, so the HARVEY clan are certainly well and truly entrenched. It's actually interesting how many of you guys have ended up staying, like you, Dodge, Sponge, have ended up staying.
There's a good group of that era actually that are still here. So I actually caught up with Johnny Cunningham on Sunday. His daughter plays up at Onka Pringaville in the Opens. So James Tyson. There's been a few. Paul McCoy moved back. Yep. He's in Melbourne now. There's a good group still. Robbie Neal, he came over. He's still here.
Yeah, Scratch is very heavily involved in footy in general. Yes, a previous guest on the show.
Absolutely.
So, righto, Halves, we'll go through best players you played with. You are allowed to say Robert too. Best players you played with.
And you can pick a few. You don't have to nail one.
He actually doesn't make my top 10.
Okay.
Oh, no, actually top 3. No, so I think Lockett was the best I ever saw.
I thought he would have to be number 1. I'd agree with that. Yep.
Yeah. So, and my number 2 would have to be Nicky Widmer. Like, he was just the most gifted player I ever saw. Some of the things he'd do, even at training, just blew me away. So, and number 3 would have to be Gary McIntosh.
Yep.
And following on from that, your hardest 3 or 4 opponents that you've had over the journey?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I can't remember many I played on. I did manage to play a couple of AFL games, and I played on Paul Couch, Brownlow medalist at Geelong. He was pretty good. I remember I played a trial game on Nathan Buckley. He was pretty good too.
Yeah, he could get a kick. Yeah, he went all right.
He went all right. Yeah, but in terms of in the SANFL,
go.
Yeah, I had a few run-ins with a few Port players along the way. They were always pretty tough to play against. It's hard to pinpoint one. I thought Rick McGowan, when in my early days here, I thought he was a really clever footballer. Robbie Rest was one when he played at Port.
Probably Weathers
really
a bit.
Fast and flashy.
Weathers and that with Sturt.
Even Osborne for down at South.
South, yeah.
Yeah, he was really handy for a real little guy, but he had some skill.
Greatly appreciated, Halves. A pleasure. I was Sir Anthony, it comes back the name after your. I think I've called you ever that since '97, too, mate. Greatly appreciated having you aboard, mate. And look forward to catching up soon, Harves.
It's been a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.
We thank Anthony Harvey there for part 2 of that interview, and obviously reminiscing a little bit more on the premiership there, and talking about Macca and the final, and not contesting it, and certainly Harves there, very proud captain or acting captain on that day, but then obviously getting the captaincy on his own right over the years.
No, justifiably, did the role well and truly in '97 as the acting captain, and then deservedly became captain, and very well respected at the parade. Anthony?
Absolutely.
You're listening to the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break. Happy days.
All right, we kick off Happy Days today with happy birthday to Mitch Hinge.
Yeah, probably a player where, again, I think there's a bit of a question mark. There's a bit too much of a gap between his good and his poor, and his disposal probably lets himself down at times. I think he's okay, but, for mine, there's still a question mark around him in general.
Absolutely. Born June 26, he's professional, obviously, playing in the AFL, playing for the Adelaide Crows. He previously played for the Brisbane Lions, and was drafted by Brisbane from Glenelg with the 20th selection of the 2017 rookie draft. Didn't realise that he'd gone so early in the rookie draft for Brisbane. I was surprised that he requested a trade back home.
Yeah, but he wasn't getting a game much at Brisbane. He was playing mainly the reserves up there. He didn't have many games, so it's been a good move for him to play regular AFL football. And I don't think he would be at Brisbane. Mm-hmm. I think Brisbane, let's be honest, Brisbane's a fair step ahead Adelaide in their development.
Yep. But him moving back to Adelaide, obviously, being picked up by the Crows as a delisted free agent from Brisbane. Yep. Hinge played 3 games in 2 seasons for the Lions. The Glenelg product, obviously, like we've talked about, very, very important. That coming back to Adelaide, in that he has cemented himself in that Adelaide side, and now maybe an opportunity for him to take his game to the next level, maybe in the middle. Yeah,
I would like to see him used there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've got decisions to make, so it'll be very, very interesting. All right, let's move on to cricket. 1939. We're going a fair way back here, mate. Brilliant West Indian batsman George Headley scores 107 to follow his 106 in the first innings in the first cricket test against England at Lords. England still wins the game by 8 wickets.
Huge name in West Indian cricket, Headley. Yeah, he's was variously called the Black Bradman and that side of things. So he's a massive name.
Yep. We move on. 1999 NBA final. San Antonio Spurs beat the New York Knicks 78-77 in Game 5 for their first title in franchise history. The MVP was Tim Duncan, who 2 years earlier was actually the first pick by San Antonio in the NBA draft. So sometimes when you play these young ones, it can pay off for you.
Yeah. Just it's funny, isn't it? Give a youngster an opportunity and they deliver.
Absolutely. And I think that needs to follow through on some of our AFL teams a little bit at the moment. But anyway, won't go there. 1991, world in tennis, with a world ranking of 591. Nick Brown upsets the 10th seed and 2001 champion Goran Ivanisevic 4-6, 6-3, 7-6, 6-3 in the second round at Wimbledon. Wimbledon can throw up some unusual results early in the tournament, and this is one of them.
It was, and it was massive because Goran was considered a grass court specialist too. So it wasn't like he was the clay court guy, couldn't play grass, and the rankings, say he should win easy and then doesn't. You're going, hang on.
Yep.
this is a grass court specialist.
And then obviously the
Lose,
2001
yeah.
final against
Yeah,
Pat Rafter, which
Rafter,
was an
yeah.
absolute classic. And
Yeah.
we saw Pat Rafter do the MND slide the other day, and
Yeah.
it just brings back some of those memories of that final and go, Pat was just a class above, even though he unfortunately would have liked to have added Wimbledon to his trophy cabinet.
Definitely.
All right, and we finish off with boxing in 1988. Mike Tyson KOs Michael Spink in 91 seconds in Atlantic City for a cool payday of $67 million. 91 seconds, mate.
It'd get you through the week, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Just.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to Extra Time Big Finish.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, let's scoot through these pretty quickly. Grass courts, Wimbledon. We just talked about Wimbledon, obviously there that they're starting to warm up, and Adelaide's lead too through the second round of qualifying after his first round victory.
Yeah, good news there. Pembroke, Prince's lads. I remember him playing there. Look, I love Wimbledon. I'm grass courts. It's tradition. Yeah, it's my, with the Australian Open and Wimbledon, they're the two tournaments for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously good to see an Adelaide lad going well, even though it was I didn't realise this, it was actually his first ever Wimbledon that he's tried to qualify for, the 28-year-old, obviously winning 6-3, 7-6 in his first round match. And I think his next match...
He's had a few injuries over time.
And his next match is obviously, going to be just as important there. And just looking up James Duckworth, Lee Tu, and Alex Bolt were the 3 Australians in the men's getting through to the next round. Lee Tu looks like he's playing the 6th seed from France, Luca Van Asche, I think it is called, but Duckworth and Bolt still obviously in the play for there. Some 17 players this year trying to qualify for Wimbledon from Australia. That's a fair chunk of
numbers. Yep,
fair chunk of players. All right, let's move on to the NBA. Josh Giddey making the move or being traded from Oklahoma to Chicago during this year's final series.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? It's interesting.
It is. They do tend to trade players a little bit more easily than what we're used to.
Well, the player doesn't get the say. Where back here, the player still has the main say. So,
would you like to see that come in?
Yeah, I'm each way on that. I'm not. I think at the moment the player's got a bit too much power, but then I don't really think the club should have all the power either. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's got to move.
A hard one.
He's got to move complete
states.
It's
bang over there. They don't muck around.
No, they don't, and they don't waste any time. The finals only finished last week, and already he's traded.
On your bike.
Exactly right.
Piss off.
NRL State of Origin Game 2 in Melbourne on Wednesday. Who's your pick, mate?
Yeah, I'll go for Queensland, but I'd like to see New South Wales get up.
Just to make it a 3-game series. I'm in the same boat, even though I'm a mad Queensland supporter. I would like to see them finish it off, but for the grade of the game, bring on Game 3 as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk soccer, mate. We were hoping to get Mary on today, but not feeling as well. But we will get her on next week to talk a little bit more about Adelaide United and what's going on with their recruiting process. But the Australian Cup, the final 32 has been settled and the draw has been given now, and Modbury Football Club and Campbelltown Football Club are right in the mix of it in the final 32.
Yeah, and we thank Paul Bowden for bringing that to attention, and don't worry, I'll be working on Paul Bowden with Bowden Air Conditioning in this next week.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah, and thanks for Paul, seriously. But yeah, so great for Modbury and Campbelltown, and could be some fairy tale games there, real big games against the David and Goliath sort of matchup. So, be really interesting to see on the 30th of July how they go.
And each of the 3 Adelaide teams, Campbelltown City, Modbury Jets and Adelaide United, are all actually playing away. So, good opportunity for some of those Modbury City and Modbury Jets to get some travel points up on the frequent flyers.
And get on the car.
Yep. Enjoy some time away, and hopefully they go well. They're playing Campbelltown City are playing Moreton City Excelsior, and Modbury Jets are playing Fitzroy City, and Adelaide United are playing Blacktown City. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll speak more with Mary about it next week, and we'll go from there. All right, Live Golf. Some of the change of dates for Adelaide looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be earlier on in the year. It seems to chop and change a bit there, but they're still probably trying to work that out where it fits in the equation, where the Adelaide's got such a good reputation.
Yep.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Where do you see that fitting with the cricket and the tennis? I know the tennis is probably a touch earlier in January than that it might not clash too much, but the cricket's probably the big one.
Yeah, probably as long as it's not clashing with the test match here, which I don't think it will.
No, because from memory,
it's
aren't the
not.
two
The
tests
I think it's
earlier before Christmas?
Yeah, earlier. So I think in that regard it's okay.
Yep. Scotty Scheffler in his 6th win for the season, but not before some Vandals storm the green on the 72nd hole. I'm all for protesting and doing it the right way, but that is the wrong way, and you're not really getting your point across properly, are you?
We could probably go to town on a few things.
We could. All right, let's move on to a couple of general things to finish off. Congratulations to Chris Flavel, who won the gold medal at the disability pairs at the Australian Open for the lawn bowls, which has just finished off last week.
Yep.
Obviously, send a message to Chris, thanking him and congratulating him. And South Australia didn't do too bad with under 18 girls coming runner-up, and I think in the over 60s, one of the ladies won. One of the ladies from Adelaide won it as well. So Adelaide batting above their weight a little bit on the lawn bowls green. But if you haven't seen the final of the men's single and the last bowl to win the title, if you don't like it, you don't like sport.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it was just one of those moments. He
nailed it,
but he was down though.
Yeah,
that was game to his opposition player.
Remarkable.
It was. Wasn't
and
it?
I'm not a lawn bowls person.
But if you look at that in
and thought, bloody hell, that's pretty specky.
And for his 6th title, Aaron Sheriff, we're talking about there. All right, the netball, we're going to follow this up a little bit more next week, obviously, with the SANFLW starting to finish up. We can concentrate a bit on the netball, but the Thunderbirds are doing pretty well at the moment, so we'll touch base with them, and filling out the
definitely
entertainment centre each week means that they're doing something right.
Yeah, very good crowds. Yeah.
And we did talk about it a little bit earlier about the death of a premiership hero a bit prematurely, a bit unfortunate from the AFL, the Australian Hall of Fame, that they didn't cross the T's and dot the I's on that one.
Yeah, look, probably one other point, I probably glossed over it a bit too quickly, because of the 2020. But look, fantastic Afghanistan, and in terms of that regard, Afghanistan going through to the Final Four, in that way, it's huge for cricket globally, and that side. So that's great.
Yep.
Yeah. So I probably
that's your good for the week.
Yeah, it is. That's probably I glossed over it, and I didn't mean that. Just go, well, Australia lost. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
It's more the point. I'm not a 2020 fan. But I don't think I gave that.
And that's why
enough due recognition.
And that's why I probably asked at the time: is the promotion of the game as good as it could be? And with a team like Afghanistan making it through to the Final Four, I think shows that it's starting to work in some of the countries.
In some ways, there's some great things out of it. That's probably a good way of putting it.
All right, we'll leave the bad and the ugly, because I think at the moment
we covered a fair bit of the bad. This week.
The bloodletting obviously in the football is one. But mate, as per usual, I thank you for your time. We thank Anthony Harvey for his time, and as per usual, mate, we promise to do better.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.